right, so we're back, and we're talking about Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
We're so back.
Yeah. We're just you were just saying, Satchel,
we're very excited and filled up with responses. So we're just shooting. We're just everything. So I hope you watch the movie, because
I know we're just talking about everything.
Because we just hit the ground running and talking about everything.
It was great, man. I rewatching that movie. In all honesty, I was saying to my wife, I was trying to figure out the last time we had watched it, and it easily had to have been like 5 years ago. And when it came out in 2004, it was on my radar immediately. It was something I wanted to see, and it's something that I was very into and watched repeatedly all the time. It was like one of the first few DVDs that I had bought. But then, you get a favorite movie and you're like, oh yeah, it's my favorite movie, and you don't really revisit it. But This was such a great way to revisit it, because it just brought all of that, those memories of the film and memories that I associated with the film, and experiences that in my life where I was like, this is just like in the movie, and what happens in the movie is actually this part of my life that happened. So it was a great way to revisit my childhood, I guess.
Yes. You put it the best when I texted you in the middle of the week. I was like, oh my gosh, I just watched Eternal Sunshine. I can't wait to have the podcast. And like, you were just like, yeah, we're going to talk about past relationships. I was like, yeah, like when I look at it, all I'm thinking about is like, yeah, man, Rachel, she was cool.
That's so funny.
The whole thing.
My wife and I were watching it, and it's one of her favorite movies too. But when Rebecca and I first met, she was into, she's still into art. She's an artist, and like she would dye her hair all the time. And at one point, that when I met, when we were young and in love, she had bright orange hair, and like that was just something that I was like, oh, you're like, that's like you.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just really interesting how we're talking about it. We're talking about a movie about memory, and then associating memories, watching it. It's just really funny.
Definitely.
I'm trying to. Go ahead.
If we could dive a little bit more into the dream, one thing that was like super nuanced that I really liked was, I love how Clementine starts to become more apparently a memory of herself than just being Clementine.
Right.
As Joel reveals all of his mistakes to her in his dream. Like, at first, it feels very much like a couple is escaping a world crumbling around them. And that's where I saw that it was analogous to Inception, right?
Sure. It does become a movie where it becomes like an on-the-run movie.
Exactly.
At one point.
It's very like Bonnie and Clyde in the beginning. And you start to get the sense that it's still Joel and Clementine together getting through their relationship, literally getting through all the events of their relationship together. But then it progressively becomes just more about Joel, and he gets lonelier as they travel across the world. Like he starts regretting and apologizing for all these moments that they go through together.
God.
And then Clementine starts conceding to it, and it's almost like, in a figurative way, her character disappears, and you see that it's just a Joel dreaming about the relationship, and that Clementine isn't really, that she's just a memory, you know?
Well, I those were some of my favorite scenes, like where they're talking about their relationship and the events that are happening in front of them in present time.
Yeah.
Like when at the end of the house, with the house, Clementine's just like, and then you left. And as we see him walk out, and he says, "I wish I had stayed." And it's such a weird thing to have someone admitting that, like, "I wish I had stayed." And in my head, I was like, "But you're right there. You can stay." And then he does, and then they make what I found really interesting, and it really got me starting to think about the movie more. It was like kind of in that moment that he makes a new memory of her. So they're in Montauk, and they're at this house, and Joel is like, "I wish, I wish you had stayed." She says, "I wish you had stayed." And then she says, "Well, come back. You don't have to leave." And then there was like a realization, like, oh, they're just playing back a memory. It's his brain. He can do whatever he wants. And then they get back together, and she says, "Meet me in Montauk." And I almost feel like that little seed of what happens right there is why he goes back to Montauk, and so they make this new memory that the guys couldn't erase. You know, that new memory that just happened wasn't on anyone's radar, so it's still there and is still this kernel. I mean, I don't know how Clementine would know to do that.
Right.
You would think
she's
that,
not a part of the...
You would think that deep down, she just knows it because of some feeling or something. But that's what I just started thinking.
Well, we didn't. I mean, that's true, because there's weight to that, because we didn't go through Clementine's mind when she had her mind erased either.
You're right. And maybe she had some kind of similar... Yeah, because I don't think the events... Nothing happens to Joel that couldn't happen to somebody else as his mind is being erased. I think he just had like a strong passion and kind of like a strong constitution. Is that the right word to keep her memory? You know, I guess he was fighting the process that much, and I guess you know, if you love someone that much, that's something that could happen with this scientific process.
Yeah. yes. This proven white lab coats. Yes.
Yeah, and it was that was like such a nice moment too, because you know their relationship is already like crumbled and deteriorated and gone at this point, and they're basically wiping the slate clean, and you're hearing their confessions of. So once back in the real world, Kirsten Dunst sends everyone a tape of their confession basically before they get their mind wiped, and they're playing back and listening to each other. I love the scene where they're in Joel's apartment and they're listening to Joel's tape, and he's like I hated the way she pronounced library. And he's like I don't think that, and he says about the hair, and he's like I love your hair. Yeah. You know, like you're hearing like these terrible things and they're apologizing for it. It's such an interesting you're never going to see anything like that in another movie, you know? No,
not at all. Not at all. Oh my gosh. And I just love how they both, and then it's the other way too, where when they're in the car, he listens to her tape, and then she's like, he's so boring. He's so square. Yeah. And neither of them can take it. Yeah. But they don't know each other.
Right. They just met and they have these intimate revelations about each other. It's so interesting. Like, what a great like, conversation starter for a relationship. You know,
horrible conversations.
Like, but it would almost be reassuring. It would almost be great to date someone and have all of the information of the terrible things that this person is capable of.
That's what
right in front of you, man. It's interesting, you know.
It is. You know, that's what it like for me. So for me, like, there were two huge takeaways, but one of the bigger ones for me that I loved, and that is so important to grasp, is the grace and perseverance that they end up having with each other, right? Because they go through this whole relationship, and it's great, and then it's horrible. Breakup, wipe, start over.
Right.
They hear all of the bitterness and all of the vulnerability and all of the honesty about their worst qualities for each other, and they decide, I forgive you. We're going to persevere through this. Yeah. Like, in spite of this. So, like, we're not going to set this aside. This is here, but we're going to go again anyway. Yeah. And, like,
it's almost an acceptance.
That's such a beautiful thing.
It really is, man. It's an acceptance of, I'm terrible, you're terrible, we're terrible together. But exactly. Let's try it. You know, let's try and make it work. And you know, seeing the end of the movie with them on the beach, and, you know, this little snippet repeats over and over again, and you know, you get the sense that they've done this before. Like, what we've seen in the movie is like part 4 of them already doing this, and maybe they'll just keep doing it over and over again throughout time. You know, it's
for whatever really reason that's like the most beautiful thing for me.
I
about
agree.
Like movies or music, like that part. It doesn't. I mean, if I could get a little bit personal, it won't get weird. If I get a little bit personal, like for me, it's. For me, it like reminds me of like my parents and their marriage. Like my parents are like my heroes, essentially.
Yeah.
Well, they're definitely one of my heroes, because like, and especially when I got older, I started to realize like their relationship is not perfect. You know what I mean? And that, you know, they have their own situations. Like, they have good times and they have really horrible times. And for myself, they did a really good job, like when I was growing up, from keeping all of that stuff away from me. Like whenever they had a quarrel, like couples do, like keeping that away from me and just keeping my mind focused on either studying or like whatever, getting work done. Yeah. And it wasn't until I graduated and I went to college that I guess it was an interesting situation where both of my parents weren't. It was the first time in a long time where my sister, she was gone. She was living her adult life. She's 8 years older than me. And then I was away in college. And it was the first time that they sort of had to just deal with each other. Like they weren't really coming together for the sake of taking care of myself or my sister. And when I would come home to visit, I'd kind of see how that dynamic changed.
Sure.
And how it could in some ways wear on you because you're not used to it, you know? And like it's like they were getting to know each other again, right? And
yeah, exactly.
It was an interesting thing for me to watch, but also what came with it was seeing like them going through the trenches together. And I think one of the coolest parts of like, I don't know, I guess growing up for me was kind of seeing the beauty in them sticking together anyway.
Sure.
And like hearing some of the stuff that they had to go through together and you know, the stuff that they took opposing like factions on and seeing them just kind of work through it.
Right.
Anyway, I'm using so much euphemism.
No, it's true.
But you know what I mean? Like getting through that, like for me, it's like, man, that's like grace is one of the most precious things we have. Like that is like, it's such an amazing image for me.
Yeah.
Anyway, so when I saw it in this story, I was like, man, like there's a whole bunch of stuff in this film, but like this ending right here where they see the end of the road and they see that the end of the road is dark for both of them. And then they look at each other, like they hear it from their own mouths and then they look at each other and not out of ignorance, but just out of love. They're like, we're going to give it another go anyway. It's like so tight to me.
No, it's great, man. It ends on for a film about deletion and negativity, it ends on such a positive note. And you know, not every movie has to end on a happy ending. And like, I don't even know if this movie ends on a happy ending. You know, it kind of ends ambiguous. And like the movie that plays, you know, Eternal Sunshine Part 2 is much better in your mind because of the questions that they raise in the movie. It's like, are they going to continue? Will they continue? We don't know, but we hope that they will. Right. Man, what you're saying about your parents like super rings true. There's a great point. You know, if some of our audience is if they're teenagers, younger people, probably one of the greatest feelings in the world is when your parents kind of just see you as an adult, and in return you see your parents as another adult, like like a peer almost. Like that feeling is great because you're like, man, my mom and dad, they're just people. They're just people. Yeah. They just went through the same stuff that we did. They just did it 30 years before you did. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, my parents were the same way, man. They, my dad was telling me, he's like, oh, when we were, when you were younger and stuff, we were really struggling, you know, money wise. And I was like, oh, really? I was like, I had no idea.
No idea.
He's like, well, yeah, I mean, why would we tell you about that? He's like, you're a little kid. You don't need to worry about that. I was like, well, that's great of you. You know, or like, if you would say like, you know, if we had a problem with like a relative or something, I would just be like, when did that happen? I had no idea that was the thing, you know?
Yeah.
They kind of do a good job of like shielding you from the things that you don't need to worry about when you're a kid. And then when you're an adult, you kind of think about that stuff and wow, you're like, oh wow, like they had the same experiences that I did and the same struggle almost.
Definitely.
Yeah, man, it's nice to see that in other relationships too. Like it was nice to see Joel and Clementine start great. You know, like here's this new and exciting thing I'm so excited about, and then to just deteriorate into just these people that don't like each other, you know? And the hope that, hey, if you address those issues that you had before, maybe you can come out better. I think that's a super positive message for, you know, if you're, I don't know, in a relationship and it's not really happening or anything, you know what I mean? It's just a nice message to be like, hey, look, if we reevaluate, we can go forward and be fine.
Yeah. Super
interesting, man. I'm going to read we had a comment from one of our travelers on our subreddit. Cold Blue Dead brings up an interesting point. He says, when you trace back their relationship through the bad times, the entire time he isn't conversing with the real Clementine. It's just his concept of who Clementine is, and the constructed Clementine is so useful for him throughout his journey. It could have been done through a cheesy voiceover or Joel talking to himself, but the fact that he can like express his thoughts to like another character and a representation of that character was interesting to him or her. And then one thing that he or she pointed out that I thought was really interesting, quote, "I'm sure you could take the beach metaphor." Oh no, I missed it. I took the wrong part. Oh no. Fill time real quick, Satchel. Let me bring it up real quick.
Okay. Actually, I do have one other thing.
Sure, go ahead.
One thing that I kept going back and forth with was how I should really interpret the idea of, and we just touched on this, how I should really interpret the idea of people wiping the memories of the relationship and falling for each other again, right?
Yeah.
You start to wonder, like, well, what memory stayed or what memory left? Or am I supposed to view this as like a fluffy sort of like, on one hand, it meddles with the idea of fate, right? We're like, well, they were just destined to be with each other. So if you wipe the memory, they'll just fall in love again. And for a minute, I thought that. And then I realized that I'd say that a more mature reaction is probably understanding the place that misfortune has in our lives.
Sure.
Like relationships that don't work out give us a keen insight into ourselves and like others for the next go around. And that's okay. Man. You know, like St. Augustine called it Felix culpa. It's like a just Latin for like a fortunate fall.
Oh, okay.
That like, and essentially what it means is, well, it has like a dual meaning, but what the meaning for this is that some of the greatest wisdom we have comes from our mistakes, and that
I agree,
so it's sort of like touching the stove when we're not told to. Like
sure,
we know exactly what the stove is going to do after we touch it after that. And like in my head, it's sort of like, it seems like the TLDR is like, I don't know if we really do. I mean, I guess I can't speak for everyone. For myself, like, I don't know if I really do want to erase the past, just because it sets me up to, like, I'm ignoring my part, which is like, it just sets me up to make the same mistakes again in a different way or in the same way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I agree, man. And
that's kind of where I landed with that.
Yeah. Well, that's like I think the question of the movie is like, this technology has become available to erase your memories. Like, do you do that? Is it worth it? Like, I'm in the same boat, man. Like, I feel like for every like negative or thing that happens, there's a positive, you know, there's an opposite reaction to that, you know, and you can take a positive away from anything, you know, like, I mean, I've been in bad relationships and failed relationships and stuff, but like, I don't think I would go back and erase them. I think in the heat of the moment, maybe, you know, I think when you're young and that's all you know, it's just like, I don't want to feel like this forever. You know, but like as you get older, you're like, you're not going to feel like that. Eventually, you're going to get over things, and even like the most traumatic thing is on a long enough time. Traumatic thing is you're over it. You know,
exactly.
And you're going to come out a better person for it.
More and more, I found like just dealing with hardship over time. I would eventually get to a point where, and it's by no means, don't misinterpret. It's not like an enlightened point. Like I definitely have a long way to go, but as far as like milestones go, like I reached a milestone where, like, dealing with hardship became, obviously there's grief, but then soon after there's like, fine.
Right.
This is where we land right now. And here are the takeaways from it. And I'm going to make sure that these particular things won't happen again. These particular things I pay more attention to. And these particular things suck, and we'll deal with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and even like on a failed relationship kind of thing, it's a good way to like self-evaluate. You know, it's like, well, this person I was with may have done X, Y, and Z, but like, what did I do, and how can I prevent that in going forward? You know, how can I be better about that and make myself a better person for that?
Definitely.
I found that quote from Cold Blue Dead. They say, Meet me in Montauk could mean meet me at the beginning. The final loop of them on the beach alludes to the idea that they keep repeating the cycle and forgetting and rediscovering their love for each other. I feel as if the beach is important for that scene. It's the space between two spaces, land and sea. It seemed like they had trouble committing. Clementine gets tired of Joel's boring, and Joel fixates on Clementine's flaws. It seems like they're on the edge and have only the courage to dip their toes in. I'm sure that you could take the beach metaphor further and comment on how Clementine is mercurial. Yeah, mercurial like the sea, and Joel is stoic and unchanging like the land, I guess. He's like maybe reading way too into it, but I do feel like that's a really good point, and I feel like that's a really interesting...
that was a fantastic response.
Yeah. And he also says, sand is definitely used near the end of the film to emphasize the impermanence, right? Yeah, impermanence of their relationship. He keeps experiencing parts of his life in the sand, falling apart, the beach, his bed, his car, and it's Joel's way of realizing that they don't have much of a future together. Interesting. That's a really good point.
I really like that. Yeah,
that was really nice. I like when stuff like that, is that intentional? And I like when things like maybe like aren't intentional, but you could read into it and be like, oh wow, yeah, that does add to that.
Yeah,
very
that
cool.
does check out.
Yeah, that does check out. So let's say this technology becomes available. How do you think you would it be something that you'd be interested in the ability to erase let's just talk about relationships, erase past relationships?
Nope, I wouldn't say.
Yeah, I don't think I would either. I think that what I've taken away and learned from them is more valuable than it not being there, Yeah. And it gives me almost like a justification, like going through something bad gives me justification for the positives that come with it. Be like, no, I'm a better person because I lived through this or went through this, and I'm better because of it. I don't think I would like take that away from myself. On like a life kind of thing, I don't know, man. I was thinking about it as I was watching the movie, and I was kind of like, there'd be like some memories that'd be nice to like forget.
Oh, you mean like small things?
Just like, yeah, like little things. Like, yeah.
You wanna share with the class?
Yeah, I don't know. Do you ever like have like a random thought in your head and you get this like, I don't know, like secondhand embarrassment? You're like, oh,
yeah,
I did that. I hate that. And it's something that happened definitely. Like 10, 20
years ago. Yeah.
And you get this memory.
You have this real world reaction to it. Yeah. You're like, oh my gosh. And the people around you are like, what's wrong with that guy?
Yeah, right. I was just like, I was making a cup of coffee and I was thinking about this, and I was like, I said this thing to my dad one time. I wish I'd never said that. Like I think I'd be interested in that aspect of it. It'd be like, like maybe like a 2-for-1. Be like, hey, look, I don't have a whole bunch of memories. If like I'm going to think about this memory and I'm going to bring my dad in and he's going to think about this memory, can you just like erase it from both of our minds? And it's like, it never happened.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, now I'm like humbler for that and be like, I know that's not a good thing to say to somebody, or whatever I took away from it is something that's important. So I don't know. It's a slippery slope, man. I don't know if I could take away memories like that.
Yeah. You never know you never just know like what positives it plays into.
Yeah, exactly. Like something like that could happen. You can have a moment like that where I'm trying to think of like an embarrassing moment or something that happened to me. I don't know. Like there could be an embarrassing moment, but you could still take away something positive and be like, well, I know if I'm ever in that situation again, this is what I need to do or be like or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. Oh, you know what? It would be really nice. I wish that I could forget. I wish I could know what it's like to watch Star Wars again for the first time. You know what I mean? To experience something. I would like it. I don't even know if it's worth it at that point. I would like the ability to forget what it was like for, I don't know, a piece of media or something. You know what I mean? To be able to watch a movie again, like wide-eyed, or like listen to an album. Like I put on
I know what you mean.
Yeah, I put on Weezer's Blue Album the other day, and immediately I thought of high school, and I thought of like where I was and talking to people about the album and stuff. And it'd be nice to like experience that with fresh eyes and fresh ears.
Yeah, I want to hear Only in Dreams for the first time again.
Right, exactly.
Ugh.
Yeah, you know, just to formulate new experiences like that. But then at the same time, like, thinking about that, I was like, oh, I was thinking about high school. I was thinking about my friends then. It brought back so many positive memories. I don't think the trade-off would be worth it.
Worth it, yeah.
In that sense. I mean, thinking of something like Lost or Battlestar Galactica. Like, I was watching some of them the other day, and I was like, oh man, I remember what it was like watching this week to week, and it'd be nice to like forget everything I know about it and experience it again. But then I also think about like, oh, well, like Lost was like me and my wife's, like, it was like a date night for us, and we would, you know,
yeah, kind of yeah. There's no way to like
to separate those things, you know.
Yeah.
Interesting, man. I really enjoyed this movie again. You know, for me, it holds up all these years later, and still.
Definitely. I don't know if this will ever be. I would watch this in black and white. That's how good it is.
Yeah, right. Seriously, man, that's so good. So you would recommend it to other people? You would tell? You think it's?
Yeah, I would. I definitely recommend this to my friends to check out. Though I think all of my friends have watched it. I'm like the last of the people I know to see it. Like, dude, guys, you really need to watch Eternal Sunshine. Like, dude, I've been watched that.
You're like, man, I watch.
It's like, how come you're not more enthusiastic about it, man? Like,
aren't you excited to talk about it, like I?
Yeah.
Well, cool, man. So let's see what's coming up. Oh, so the next movie that we're gonna do for the telecast is 12 Angry Men. Yeah, I texted you about this the other day. It's a movie I've never seen before.
Me neither.
Okay, cool. So this will be really nice. It's a movie that neither of us have ever seen before. We'll be able to experience it. I've heard nothing but good things. It's a super.
When did this come out?
We're gonna watch the 1950. I want to say 2.
Okay, got it.
Version of it. 1957. Sorry. So I think. I think it's a movie I've seen like a clip from, but really like I mean, obviously it has to do with the jury. I'm interested to see all that. It's a movie that is super well respected and like, you know, very high on like IMDb's top 250 list. So cool, I think it'll be an interesting, and it'll be a nice, like, we've done a lot of heady things. We got a lot of trippy things. It'll be cool to see something. I think I've just been listening to Serial too much. That I'm into courtroom things right now.
That's great.
Well, cool. Thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
And thanks for the super insightful feedback. The subreddit is great.
Yeah.
The tweets, been getting a lot of positive vibes, like a lot of really good vibes, encouraging stuff, and then really good additions to the conversations we've kind of had, and it's been amazing. Yeah,
it's been a great thing. We're building up a great community, and I love seeing people, you know, post their thoughts and react to other people's thoughts, man. It's great, and that's what we want to do with this podcast. I'm glad to see people are doing it offline. To say that I don't know what I'm saying.
Wait, do you mean like corporate slang, like offline, like
yeah,
elsewhere?
I meant like I feel like
it's online, but offline, like, yeah, I get it.
I was thinking about it like as if like, for me, like, we're doing this and I feel like it's live, you know what I mean? So I guess it was more like that. But then as I was saying that, I was like, well, it's not really live. Like in my head, I'm having this second dialogue with myself, and I'm like, that's not really live. We have to edit it and we have to post it. It's gonna be a few days later. Oh, hey, real quick. So we're recording this on Oscar Sunday. Not to like pull back the curtain all the way, but do you usually watch the Oscars or anything, Satchel?
I will be watching it tonight. I usually do, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I have this like this fondness for that. I know people can get very like cynical about, you know, actors giving awards to other actors and stuff, but like
right.
I like that stuff. I feel like it's interesting. I feel like if people get awards for all kinds of things, they're just not always televised, you know? So yeah, I think that's why people get bitter about it.
Yeah, I think I try not to think too much about politics. I just focus on, hey, I'm going to watch this really excellent thing with a lot of excellent people doing excellent stuff.
Right, exactly. These are people I would love to call my peers one day, and it's cool to see artists doing cool stuff.
Yeah. The only thing that pisses me off is when people belittle CG artists. That's the only other thing.
I know, man.
There's always like this segment where like they do this montage for like the Pixar thing, and like, you know, they just kind of show, because it's a big team, so they show a lot of people. And then I remember there was this one time, like it was when James Franco was like hosting, and he was like, "Yeah, good job, nerds." I was like, "What?"
Yeah,
are you kidding me?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I feel CG artists, man, they have like a really raw deal right now, man. There's some industry stuff that just has to kind of turn around, you know, for their benefit, at this point. Yeah. You know who does it right? It's the Golden Globes. I think the Emmys does it when they do like for writers, like the whole team gets that. I know, like, you know, for a TV show, they might have like 12 writers or something. They all get one. But like, man, if you went for visual effects, man, they better make Oscars for everybody on that team. You know?
Yeah, definitely. They all deserve it.
Yeah. Have you seen any of the Best Picture movies?
I have. I'm going in completely blind.
Oh, cool.
Everything is
That'd
going to be completely fresh. Yeah.
I think this is the first year in a little bit that I've seen the majority of them.
Wait, what are the noms for Best Picture?
I know Birdman's on there. Birdman is very good. We just watched that the other day, which I think Birdman would be a great one for the show for us to do on here. So it is American Sniper, Imitation Game, Birdman, Selma, Boyhood, The Theory of Everything, Whiplash, and Grand Budapest.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So
freaking Boyhood made it. I know it would. Interesting.
Dude, pretty nice, right? I haven't seen Boyhood yet. I'm super excited to see it, but haven't had a chance to.
Yeah, me neither.
Grand Budapest was great. You saw that, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Grand Budapest is a lot of fun. My wife and I, we just started watching Theory of Everything. We kind of paused it last night because we fell asleep. not as a knock to the movie. We're just like exhausted. So we're gonna pick that up today probably. But I've not seen Selma, Boyhood, or Whiplash. So those are kind of still on my list. But I've heard nothing but good things from all of them.
Cool.
So yeah, I'm
looking forward to it. Yeah,
I have this feeling that Birdman's going to take it just because it's a movie about the industry. I feel like those kind of I don't know. The Academy has this tendency to kind of like go for movies like that. Remember, like The Artist one?
Yeah, The Artist. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not The Artist wasn't a great movie.
But it was very seen. It was a very seen
right
kind of movie that played into the hearts of the people who who make decisions.
Yeah. And I wonder too if there was like an Academy Awards for like content creators, if we would be not biased, but you know, kind of like that. Would be like, well, we understand how hard it is, and this is why we should recognize this thing. You know what I mean? I feel like we'd be probably in the same boat in that sense.
Whoa, I never thought about it that way.
You know what I mean?
Like, could you unpack that a little more? I'm kind of curious to know.
I'm trying to think. Like, I don't want to like be like, oh, we're YouTube people, but if there was like a YouTube award, like, would there? I don't know. It wouldn't just be like a numbers game. It would be like people who also make content would vote for other people who make content, so they would be like, oh, well, you know, that guy's struggle is real. You know, the struggle to make that show is makes it more interesting than X show that's super popular. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah,
which
I
think,
agree.
Yeah, when it comes to like the Oscars, everybody's like, well, that movie sucked, this movie sucked, and sometimes it's more like, yeah, but the fact that it got made, like Boyhood, you know, like for sheer dedication, Boyhood should win. You know, like that, you make a movie over 12, 15 years, like that's incredible. Like, give it to him. Just give him the Oscar already. But you know, there's other factors and stuff.
That's always hard. Boyhood is, if we can take a sidebar, like Boyhood, it's, so I haven't seen it, so I can't really make a judgment.
No, me neither. Yeah,
it could just be good on its own without me knowing what happened behind the scenes.
Sure.
But I mean, I've heard a lot of people make arguments on. For me, I saw the trailer and I was like, whoa, super cool how they did it. And that was sort of just the end of the conversation. But for some people, they're like, yeah, but should critical acclaim be invested in, like, where does death of the author play into this? If like the crutch and the selling point is how they made it instead of what it's saying to me.
I agree 100%,
like,
man. Sometimes,
you know what I mean?
You know, that could be another application for Lacuna Inc., you know? Just delete your memory of what you know about Boyhood and just go in fresh. Just
go in and watch it, yeah, without the trailer telling me that they did the things that they did. Like, right. I think about it then.
I don't know, man. That's a good conversation for us to have. Like, you know, what if you know about the process too much, like how much does that affect your your judgment of it. You know, like,
I always get sold on the process. Even when I'm buying things, like you start explaining to me the process. I mean, think about all the product videos now. Every product video, like Kickstarter porn, it's all like people in a machine shop cutting the stuff, seeing the close-ups with a lot of bokeh on things turning and guys churning, and the Budweiser commercial during the Super Bowl with the mustache guy.
Just gonna say that to you, man. Like that is spilled over into like
they're selling a story.
Beer commercials. Yeah, they're selling like Jack Daniels is brewed in a barrel. It's like, no, man, it's brewed in a factory. It's brewed in like a giant tub. You know?
Yeah, it's like, you know how many of us you have to give bottles to? Yeah. It's not just that one dude. Like Stella Artois, they were showing like, we invented this sound process of brewing, brewing or whatever. I was like, you don't have a farm of 1 million of those sending out bottles to me. Come on.
Exactly.
Like,
and no one's ever given me a Stella and like used a butter knife to wipe the head off.
I know. Yeah, exactly.
I wonder if like the inverse is that you're just like cynical to it. You're just like, come on.
You know? No, it's true. It's true.
That's funny, man. I am super guilty of that. Like if I know too much about the passion that goes into it, I'm just like, well, I gotta buy it. You know? Yeah, like I appreciate craftsmanship. I'll buy that. Definitely. That's interesting. Well, we'll see how the Oscars go, and you know, maybe we'll talk about it next time. But thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Peace, guys.
The Cinephilia Anonymous Telecast is produced by Satchell Drakes and Nick Murphy. Music by Mark Junker. You can hear more of his music at junker.ca. That's JUNKER.ca. You can follow the Telecast on Twitter at CA Telecast, subscribe on YouTube at CA Telecast, subscribe on iTunes, and check out our website, catelecast.com.